Where can you find gourmet organic coffees, a friendly hometown atmosphere, and beautiful views of Humboldt Bay and beyond? It's Has Beans Cafe, open every day at 2nd and I Street in the heart of Old Town Eureka.
2nd Street, right where Geppetto's used to be. Now it's an itty-bitty vintage shop with great shoes. And Marie Antoinette had pots. Little shop of hers.
This is Charles Douglas from the Media Center here at Access Humboldt in Eureka. Welcome to the first of a weekly series, Sentinel Interviews, with political candidates, newsmakers, and other influential people here on the North Coast. We brought something out of our archives for our first episode, an interview I conducted in the summer of 2007 with Richard Mostranski. He was the campaign manager both for Richard Marks and Nancy Fleming, who were the two opponents of Bonnie Neely in her successful re-election campaign in 2006. Richard Mostranski is now the campaign manager for Ryan Sundberg, the leading runoff candidate for 5th District Supervisor in Northern Humboldt. Join us as he discusses politics from the inside, what it really takes to run a successful local election campaign, and his observations about the political scene. You worked on Richard Marks' campaign for supervisor for the primary last year, then you worked for you worked for Nancy Fleming's supervisor campaign in the fall. You lost both times to Neely, though. Why do you think was that? Was just the money, or?
Well, one of it is Richard Marks' campaign. He ran before against Bonnie Neely, I believe, 8 years ago beforehand. Mm-hmm. And he also lost due to not having funding, and the Democratic Central Committee, who he's a member of, who he supports, who he used to work with, go to all their meetings, disowned him and supported Bonnie Neely, who was a Republican. Then Richard Marks, who is, at time to time, he would be a union representative, and he would organize very well, great organizer for unions. And he's a union member, works at the pulp mill, and Evergreen Pulp Mill. The unions decided to back Neely, and they said, Richard, we're not going to be with you. And so you had two people who were the foundation of him to win the election, of backing support of the Democratic Central Committee and the unions, disowned him, went to the side of Bonnie Neely. After I found out about that, there was a month left in the election. I knew then that it was over. But we got 25% of the vote, and we only had $10,000 worth of money because, and that was all the money we had, and that was due to nobody supporting Richard. And we knocked on probably 7,000 homes in the 4th District, door to door, constantly, every single day, and we had some good support, but we didn't have what we needed to win. Now Nancy Fleming on the other side, so that was a Democrat. So then I go and work for Republican. Now mind you, I did not know Richard Marks at all, never met him before, and never met Nancy Fleming before, and knew she was mayor but didn't really pay attention to her because I was out busy doing my stuff. So then Nancy Fleming gives me a call, says, hey, come on over, let's do the election, let's run my campaign. Sure, no problem. Now Nancy was different. She ended up 30% in the primary, so she was running off against Bonnie Neely. And what happened was, when I got on the campaign, it was July 1. So we opened up an office. Nancy was gone. She took off her vacations before she wanted to start with the campaign. It was a long, hard 4 months or 3.5 months or whatever. And so what I did was I started the office, got everything going. We had a media day and we started out. she was down. She had 30% in the primary. I believe Neely had, what, 48% or something like that, somewhere around there. So there was a lot of catching up to do. And we started from scratch. And Nancy did not have a lot of supporters. Everybody thought that Nancy had all this big money and everything else and what have you. She had some people who donated. It wasn't just developers. Everybody thinks it was all developers, Kramer and Arkley and all that. You know, and actually Sherry Arkley was the one that donated some money to our campaign, but it wasn't, and Kramer did barely put any money. It wasn't that. It was the average Joe on the street that was supporting Nancy Fleming. And they remember her as a mayor and what she did for downtown and everything else. So it was like Nancy can get the job done. I mean, Nancy used to have a hard hat and a gold shovel in her office because she could get the job done. So everybody remembered that. And
so it was a nonpartisan election in the best sense.
Exactly. Nonpartisan, and so you had, and then so Neely, you had the Democrats and all the unions supporting Neely. They did not go to Nancy Fleming, which I thought was strange because Nancy was portrayed as a developer. So you think the unions would get on her bandwagon because here's the money, you know, they could get union-based jobs and wages and everything else. So Nancy was portrayed as a developer. So you think the unions would get on her bandwagon because here's the money, you know, they could get union-based jobs and wages and everything else. So they stayed with Neely. So Neely thought she had it won. She thought she had it won. Nancy was nothing, I'm going to kick her. But as the time went on, and when I took on that, and like I said, I had a staff of one other person, and it was the office manager, and I had some volunteers that would come in. That was it. I did not have a lot of people for the campaign. That's all we had. Everybody thought we had all these people. No, everybody stayed away from Nancy Fleming. It was like, they come in, they would drop off money, they would support, we'll vote for you, but for people to get out there and start doing the volunteerism and start doing these things, we did not have a lot of people. So I'm sitting here running this campaign and doing everything possible to try to get us close to Bonnie Neely. As the time went on, we started getting to, I'd say a month before the election. And you know, people were speculating out there, you're still down 10%, you know, everybody's talking about this. And I think that somebody did a poll somewhere. I know they did because, you know, they were all talking about it. Somebody had to do a poll. So we were 10% down, and that was a month before the election. Then we came right up to the election, and I heard on the street and everything else, we walked by people waving, you're going to win, you're going to win, you're going to win. We got to that point of almost, I mean, I had Nancy Fleming even with Bonnie at the end. And then Bonnie pulls out her tricks of the trade with her advertising and saying, you know, Nancy's is a rich woman, has, you know, a Mercedes car, the house she lives in, like a mansion out on the island. And the house is only actually about 800 square feet, and it's actually a small house, and her car's like 30 years old, you know, that I told her to get fixed because it was rattling down the road.
She rows a boat across the bay.
He rides a boat across the bay and everything else, but Bonnie just started slamming at the end. And then, because I had Bonnie Neely beat. I had her scared. She was dead scared. He said, here's this guy that was running Richard Marx's campaign. People did not even understand who I was or what I was about, any of my background, education, or anything. And then I started doing this, and Bonnie was shaking in her boots. She thought she was going to lose. I know she had it in her head that she was going to lose. And she had everybody. She had Thompson. She had Berg. She had Kerrigan. She had the support of the union. She had the support of the Democratic Central Committee. She had support all through the state and one congressman. Mm-hmm. And I got it right there to the end, and we lost. Now the reasoning we lost, two reasons, and I will say this now. One of them is due to Security National. Security National. You
mean there are people at the polls on election day? Or?
Before that, Security National, as Nancy said, not for sale. That was her email. NFS4444. That was her email. Not for sale. Security National started coming into the campaign office. Brian Morrison used to come in, and he would try to order me around. He would try to tell me what to do and how I need to do this. And I was starting to get upset. Nancy finally started seeing it. She started getting upset. And I said, look, guy, I said, I'm running this campaign. I said, you don't know anything about politics. Get the heck out of here. I'm going to run this campaign. He kept pushing in and pushing in and pushing in this campaign. At the end of the campaign, the worst time is for somebody to come in and start manipulating you, your campaign, your candidate, and everything else. And that's what Security National did. They started manipulating Nancy Fleming. They went out and we already had Nancy Fleming's signs out, you know, for District Supervisor, Nancy Fleming. Okay, we had some with her picture on there, and then we went with the basic regular signs. Security National went out and started putting on those signs, you know, read her plan. And they went out and attached this to their signs. All of the people that we had signs on their lawns who were supporting us were calling us up saying their signs are being vandalized. Vandalized. Phone was ringing off the hook. I did not authorize this to happen. It happened. That was one that started changing. Everybody saw this. People were writing about it everywhere. That was the first thing. The second thing was a 10-point plan. You never go out and say a plan while you're running an election. You don't say, I'm going to do this because the other candidate will get, well, I'm going to do this. And so it's just a fighting match. The 10-point plan was not adopted by me, was not adopted by Nancy Fleming. It was adopted by Security National.
Well, who put it on our website then?
Security National, as I said, manipulated the candidate and manipulated the candidate so bad to tell the candidate that you needed this 10-point plan. You need a plan now. You need this 10-point plan to show to the voters what you're going to do. I disagreed with it. I didn't like it, the 10-point plan to show development all the way. It was a straight development plan. It had nothing to do with homelessness, alcohol and drugs, any of these things that we wanted to get to the voters to actually get a change in this community. Jobs and all it was is we're going to do this and we're going to bring in jobs. It had nothing else to do with what fixing anything else is going on in the community. So this 10-point plan was not my idea. It wasn't Nancy Fleming's idea. It was shoved down our throat, and word came to me is we're using this.
Did it somehow parrot or mimic the fighting for jobs theme that Virginia Bass is using in her mayor race?
No, not really. It was way different than anybody's. I mean, way different. Virginia Bass's. What this was is a whole step of 10 steps of how you're going to bring development. So what happened was when she went on the air with this, you're putting it out over there on your boards as far as you know, vote for Nancy out there on street corners and stuff, and you might read my 10-point plan. You read this 10-point plan, it talks about development, and it started scaring off the voters. Because the voters are thinking, oh, she is a rich person. Oh, she is for the development of the developers in this community and not for the average person on the street. And this is what it started unraveling on. And so that started losing a lot of ground, and then with Bonnie coming out slamming that she's for developers, and that HELP was, I think when she came out in the campaign, Bonnie said that HELP was a big supporter, which they never were. Some people that are on HELP, that are on their board or whatever, and that are members of the organization, like Jerry Arkley, gave money, but you know, it wasn't that HELP, we were helping HELP and HELP was helping us, you know, even though we needed help, you know.
But was it their platform that was adopted wholesale?
No, it wasn't. We didn't even adopt their platform at all. Matter of fact,
well, those 10 points is pretty similar.
The 10 points were close to pretty much of helping them. Remember now, the 10-point plan came from Security National. Okay.
And HELP kind of comes from Security National too, right?
And if you look at Security National, they're in the business for developing, besides doing other things. Yeah. So you're right, the 10-point plan shows the development. So that's when that's slammed on your candidate, and you cannot, as a campaign manager, when you say, I don't want this, and yet you still have to do this because the candidate finally tells you you're going to do this, you know, and you're going, well, this is not going to work, and you have a discussion with the candidate, this is going to make us lose votes. And you're going, well, this is not going to work, and you have a discussion with the candidate, this is going to make us lose votes. Bottom line, as soon as that came out and as soon as she presented it,